Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 39 of the Avocado Gamescast, the Avocado's gaming podcast. It's been over a month since we last recorded, and a lot has happened in the gaming sphere since then. So, we're going to break it down for y'all and have a roundtable discussion on recent events in the games industry. But before we get to that, let's introduce ourselves. My name's Merve, and joining me, his genetic memories involve parkouring on the roof of the Sydney Opera House, it's Ben.
That was way too much of a sudden jump in energy, and now we're all like excited and happy.
I try to keep it light around here. You know how I go. He's been asking all his friends to call him Master Pawn without success. It's SingingBrakeman.
Hello, everybody.
And finally, he's killed Mathman dozens of times, but he can never escape the maze. It's Mr. Glitch.
Hi, everybody.
All right, so how y'all doing?
To a game that I'm unaware of.
Okay, so it's actually not even a video game. It's a reference to this old PBS show that used to air these shorts where some character would try to solve math problems. This character was called Mathman, which is a parody of Pac-Man. It was in a maze.
Oh, I thought you were saying Mothman, like the fucking cryptid.
Oh, golly. Yeah,
Yo,
I wonder
that
if
would
it's a
be
riff
a
on that.
fucking great game.
Guys, me and Slenderman, we go way back.
Mr. Glitch is like the original, like Slenderman's best man at his wedding.
I am a mathematics creepypasta.
Yeah.
Like the old school photos of like him in primary school with like a tiny little Slender Man in a tiny little suit.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder who do you think Slenderman would marry? Like, who would Slenderman's spouse be?
Would it just be like a Bride of Frankenstein situation where it's just Bride of Slender Man, like a female version of Slender Man?
Like, it doesn't even have her own name.
Yeah.
I'm Mrs. Slenderman.
So Slender, it's like Mrs. Claus, like
So Slender Woman, basically.
Slender. Is it like, you know what that reminds me of? This is gonna be the stupidest connection ever. But you know how Soulja Boy had, you know, his Soulja Boy song? He had a follow-up song
yeah.
to that called Soldier Girl. And I'm not making this up. He legitimately did.
I mean, the world was waiting for a sequel. He couldn't rightly deny it one.
Yeah.
Oh, we're starting off this podcast strong.
Yeah, talking about Soulja Boy. I don't even remember Soldier Girl was a single. I'll we'll put it in the link dump. If there's a music video, people can get a blast from the past. I haven't thought about Soulja Boy in like 10 years. Anyway, Glitch, it's your first time on the podcast. You excited?
Right. Very much so. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so as we always do for when we initiate people, we have them go first when we ask them what they've been playing lately. So, Glitch, what have you been playing lately?
So lately I've been playing the HD re-release of Okami.
Oh,
The old
nice.
Classic, yeah, the old classic PS2 game.
On the PC, on the Switch, or...
On the X-Bone
Oh, nice.
of all systems.
Oh,
It was
it's the new Skyrim.
the
Okami? No,
Okami.
in that Okami's getting ported to everything. So
Oh, yeah.
there's gonna be like Okami for fridge soon or something like that.
Yeah, good point.
Okami for my printer.
Nice.
Oh, it's,
On Amazon Alexa.
So how do you feel about Okami?
Oh, I love it. I played it in the PS2 days, back when it wasn't really, it received a lot of critical attention, but nobody bought the thing. So I think it was Clover's swan song actually.
Oh yeah.
It was like one of their first, I think. The last game
Was
they
it?
did was God Hand.
Oh, my
Oh
bad.
nice. Yeah, I was gonna say even like an even better comparison than Skyrim would be Psychonauts, a game that didn't do well at release, but then by word of mouth became popular like 5-6 years later, and now is on every system ever. Yeah, I think that's the pattern it's been following. So tell us about Okami. What do you do in it other than be a wolf and paint things?
You are a wolf and you paint things. What more do you want? I mean, how demanding are you? No, it's a Zelda-like, very much an adventure game with RPG aspects to it, and your goal is, of course, you're saving feudal Japan from the clutches of an evil demon or a group of evil demons, and you play the role of a god, actually a fairly prominent god. Now, there's no what I understand of Shintoism.
Amaterasu, right?
Yeah, Amaterasu,
Yeah.
the sun god or sun goddess, I guess. You are you're a god in wolf form, who has the magical ability to manipulate the forces of, I suppose, nature using what they call a celestial brush, which kind of feeds into the overall theme of the game of basically the entire environment being a canvas that you can manipulate, and you can exercise your godly powers as basically draws or your drawings on a watercolor background that represents the game environment.
Yeah.
It
looks really nice too.
is.
That art style holds up.
Yeah, it's drop dead gorgeous. The HD remaster is terrific. The original game, honestly, the PS2 game looks amazing. It's I mean, a lot of PS2 vintage games I can't say held up a lot in terms of aesthetics, kind of the low polygon count, I suppose.
Yeah.
The PS2 kind of precludes some of that, especially some of the stuff that gets blown up to HD gigantic TV screen sizes these days look a little chunky. But Okami, because it's basically a cell shaded and a very very stylized game, still looks amazing. Although I don't think they tweaked the poly count on the remasters.
It's like Jet Set. It's an old game that looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd make the case for Okami is probably still one of the most beautiful works in the medium. Though, have you ever looked into the original build of it, the pre-stylization
the realistic one?
Yeah.
Or realistic in air quotes?
Yeah. I mean, it was more of a kind of a straight up, I guess, probably more Twilight Princess-y.
Very much so, yes.
Style.
Yeah, that wouldn't hold up as much nowadays, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, Capcom really had its A game together on making maybe not necessarily late, but executive decisions midway through the process between redoing Resident Evil 4 several times and then redoing the art for Okami. Good calls all around.
And
Yeah.
then they killed the studio and fired all the people responsible for them.
Right.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Way to
There
go.
was evidently a sequel. Just
Yeah,
I think it was-
Okami did on the DS.
Yes.
yeah,
It's
Even
clearly
fewer
the
people
puppy
play that one.
version of Amaterasu.
which is adorable.
Adorable as fuck.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite aspects of the game that I've noticed as I've been playing it a lot is that you're not a god in wolf form. You're a god who is a wolf, which is kind of an important distinction, I suppose, because for the most part, I say that probably the combat is accepted because there's a lot of fanciful jumping around maneuvers and whatnot that your
Well, it's
character
like
does.
Like, if there's wonder that's gonna do fucking good combat.
Yeah. I mean, but your interactions with the non-playable characters, you're not talking to them. You have a small bouncing cricket artist guy who basically is your
Little Jiminy
voice in the game. Yeah, little Jiminy Cricket dude, and he talks, and I mean he talks a lot. It's actually kind of one of the game's a little bit shortcomings. There is a lot of dialogue.
That game is fucking long too.
Very, very, very long.
It
There's
is.
a lot of climaxes, which is, I mean, it's fine. It's almost episodic in the way that.
Yeah, the way because I never beat it, I played it and it was long. But like I always heard it's like you beat it and then Okami 2 starts and then you beat that and then Okami 3 starts basically.
That's accurate.
So it's like Nier Automata, almost.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Okami is listed at 43 and a half hours for main plus extra on how long to beat. So that's pretty long.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So
I'd
it's
have to
not
look
like JRPG length, but still pretty up there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look at my old PS2 save files, but I'm sure it's got to be somewhere around 40 to 50 hours for completion, which is why I never revisited it under the PS2 version. It was, I loved the game, but it's like, oh, gosh, this is Skyrim levels of investment in time.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends for me. Sometimes for these big games, I end up kind of around how long to beat says, but sometimes I end up like way over. I remember Mankind Divided took me like twice as long as how long to beat said it would take me. So But then other games like Portal, I beat in less than the time it listed. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't the time listed for Portal like an hour and a half? It's not long.
No, it is a really short game. It's listed as 3 to 5 hours.
Cat.
Okay.
Yeah. I think
I thought you were like really angry about Portal for some reason, which is fine.
Oh, fuck, I forgot Portal.
Yeah.
I left my Portal on.
That'll get you.
My cat's been falling through the ceiling for the past 20 minutes.
That'd be like a really fast-moving cat. Like, how long does a cat need to fall to reach terminal velocity? I'm curious.
Only one way to find out. Who's got a ladder?
Don't cats get slower the longer they fall, and that's why there are those stories of cats like surviving falling off 20-story buildings?
Oh, golly. Maybe.
I don't think that's physically possible, just based on basic kinematics.
Well, I wonder about surface area with regard to their hair in
No, it's like
particular.
they can like somehow like you know how when you skydive you spread your body out to go slower and you
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like cats instinctively do that and like
Like,
so
they
if
increase their air resistance.
Yeah, if they fall a certain distance they start doing that and like cats can survive a longer fall. I could be completely
I should look this up. So I'm gonna guess that it could operate on sort of a, like you can increase your air resistance within like a short fall, but after like a really long fall, like if you're falling 30 stories, you're at you've increased your air resistance as much as you can, right? And then it's just whatever else. It's just gravity taking over. I don't remember kinematics. It's been 10 years since I've taken a physics class, so I might be talking out of my ass.
I think the last time I took a physics class, it had just been in...
Yeah, 132 cats falling from an average of 5.5 stories and as high as 32 stories, the latter of which is more than enough for reaching terminal velocity, have a survival rate of around 90%.
Oh, nice.
Who's
fucking
experimenting with this, I have to ask?
I don't
think
know.
just tracking statistics, not actually like dropping them.
Like, dropping cats would be like a really good research, not a really good research project. I don't want the animal rights people like hitting us up on this podcast.
Informative.
Yeah, it would be an informative research project. I don't know if it would be ethical, but we get away with a lot of shit in research. Like,
Mildly unethical.
yeah, they kill a lot of animals, like a lot. It's scary.
Wow, this podcast is going down a really dark road, isn't it?
I mean, we've killed.
Okami's a great game. Let's talk about killing animals in research and the ethics of it.
We kill a lot of animals in the video games we play.
You
Brakeman, have you killed any animals in a video game lately, or real life? But let's keep it first to video games.
Yes, indeed.
You have. Which video game have you
well,
killed?
no. In fact, I have been playing Resident Evil 2 lately.
So zombies
you
don't count as
don't you?
animals to you.
No, indeed. No giant zombie elephants or anything that might plague the series later on. No, strictly
Dropped
human
into,
zombies.
like, crows and all that shit.
They have
Yes.
what? Sorry.
Yeah, whatever the world, whatever a liquor is.
I'm lost. Okay, liquor
Yes,
and
yes.
Resident
The
Evil. What's going on?
final enemy from the Resident Evil movie. That's as much as I know about it.
Is a
All
bottle
right,
of liquor?
So
Wait.
I'll take a step back here. So Resident Evil 2 is, I guess it came out in 1998, and funny enough, to put in a minor plug here, I'm going to be working on a franchise festival entry for it on the Avocado come October. So I thought it might be nice to revisit the series. I guess that's 20 years ago now. So the last time I played Resident Evil 2 was indeed 1998 or 1999.
Oh wow!
And those games have aged like a dairy product. You know, it's a
so like blue cheese.
Yes,
it's a little
exactly.
stinky, but it's still edible.
Indeed, yeah, more like blue cheese than like yogurt. You know, it's
Doesn't one
it's
eventually become the other
fascinating.
anyway?
What's that?
Doesn't one eventually become the other anyway?
I think they
Oh,
use
touche.
different bacterial cultures. Maybe. We don't know enough science to talk about the things we're talking about on this podcast.
Indeed, yeah. I'm no scientist, but if I were, I might be inventing zombies, and then you'd have a Resident Evil situation on your hands. So,
cheese flavored zombies.
If zombies tasted like cheese, I think we would actually. Humans are cruel enough to actually just breed zombies for eating.
Yeah, there
cheese.
would be no apocalypse. There would be zombie farms and oh yeah, fucking cut off a slice of that shit.
Yeah, zombies must taste
wrong,
like garbage. Anyway, so Resident Evil 2, how's that going? It doesn't hold up super well, but what do you appreciate about
it's
it?
a very interesting it's a very interesting work to revisit, in that it's very of its time in certain ways and extremely before its time in other ways. Its UI in particular, user interface, it lacks any kind of HUD at all. What's going on screen is, I guess it was very much designed around a cinematic approach.
Okay.
So there's no kind of stats or gauges or anything like that to sort of obscure you from the zombie action occurring on screen. The visuals are not great. They're interesting in the way that matte paintings from the 50s are interesting. There's a certain craftsmanship associated with them, but it is just highly artificial. One of the more surprising things is how I remember how scared I was of this back in the late 1990s, and it's really interesting to revisit with all the benefit of the following 20 years,
Yeah, I assume you were in your childhood or teen years while you were playing it initially, or?
Right, yeah, very much so, about 10 years old, so kind of just the right age for that.
Yeah, so I can imagine being scared. Just out of curiosity, what platform are you playing it on?
I'm actually playing it on the PlayStation 3. I was kind of disappointed to find that the PlayStation 4 doesn't have PS1 emulation.
Yeah, the PS4 is missing a lot of old classics. Like the only reason I've kept around my PS3 is that I can play Persona 4 on it if I want to revisit that game. Otherwise, I would have sold that thing. So yeah, it's sad that the PS4 hasn't been getting. I mean, I think they had that PS4 game streaming service or something. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But we'll get into companies' failure to archive their video games a little later in this podcast. Ben, what have you been playing?
Well, I feel really out of place because I haven't been playing anything by Hideki Kamiya, which seems to be the theme that we're going for.
Good call.
But I have actually been playing on your recommendation, Merve, the PATO box game.
Oh, nice. How's that been?
That game's fucking weird.
Nice.
I started playing it, and okay, for anyone that hasn't played PATO box, which is, I'm assuming, most
It
people.
also includes me, because I just saw the game on Steam, and it looked like what Ben was looking for. So oh yeah, this game's been getting good reviews, you should check it out. I haven't even bought it yet.
It's the fucking weirdest. I thought, oh, cool, it's a Punch-Out clone. It's a cool Punch-Out clone. And you start off, and so visually it looks like, anyone play Mad World on the Wii, I think it was?
Yes.
Yeah, another game it
that
looks like is...
half black and white style,
yeah.
but you're playing Punch-Out. And then it starts off, and you're in the first fight, and you're doing, Punch-Out and shit. It's fucking Punch-Out, you know what I mean? And then you get drugged. Then you wake up in a laboratory, and then you're doing stealth sections as Punch-Out. And so the entire game world is 3D, but your character is just 2D and stapled to the camera basically. And then basically the structure of the game ends up being you go to a level, you do a bunch of level that has a bunch of stage has there's one that has gas in, there's one that you have to do fucking casino games and earn money, and then you get to the end, and then you do a Punch-Out boss fight, but the Punch-Out boss fights all have weird traps and gimmicks and then it turned into a rhythm game at one point. It's fucking weird.
Are we
good
approaching...
weird or bad weird?
Yeah, good
Oh,
weird, or
it's
frog
amazing.
fractions weird, or
Not Frog Fractions weird.
Okay.
but like a little bit more like thematically consistent than Frog Fractions. But,
So it's like
for example,
Fury on drugs, is what I'm
Yeah.
getting from this.
the Punch-Out fight I'm in at the moment, right? I'm versing this chef dude, and like he has his attacks, and you dodge the attacks, and then like when he finishes the attacks, he has like a little bit of recovery time, and then you hit him to do like it's Punch-Out. Except then he's a chef, and he's like working on this like big pot of stew, and a bunch of ingredients start falling from the sky, and you have to like dodge left and right to grab the ingredients and then put them in his stew. And you have to make sure you're grabbing the ingredients that make a good stew. Because if you get enough good stew ingredients in it, he'll start drinking the stew, and then you get a bunch to punch on him a bunch. But if you grab like one of the rats or the socks or whatever that's falling down and put it, he'll lose his shit and do a heap of damage to you. And like all the fights have gimmicks like that in, and yeah, sometimes it will just turn into a fucking rhythm game. Also, everything is ducks. You're like a dude with a duck head, and
Yeah.
there was a bit in the game where it turned into a horror game for a bit, where you're being chased by like a veiled clone duck man thing. That's like, if you see it, it like just cuts to a quick cut of it, and it screams and runs at you, and you die, and it's fucking weird.
Okay, so I pretty much have to play this game now, is what you're
Yeah.
telling me.
Yeah, this is really up my
Sounds like
alley.
we all do, yeah.
Okay, so I will buy that soon and play it and let you know how weird it is. So I've been playing something considerably more normal than that. I've been playing a puzzle platformer called Forgotton Anne. It's this it's got this really strong focus on its animation, and its art style is meant to look sort of like a Studio Ghibli film. So think,
Oh, I think I've seen the trailer for that.
yeah, think Arrietty. It's it very much reminds me of Arrietty. So yeah, it's animated, sort of anime style. You got sort of the herky-jerky, hand-drawn kind of animation, but it's really gorgeous and fluid as well. In terms of mechanics, it's a little bit clunky. It's not the nicest game to control because like the focus is on the animations, so sometimes you have to kind of wait for an animation to finish before putting in more inputs. But overall, I've been enjoying it so far. It's, got this very charming I wouldn't say childlike kind of story, but the kind of story that you could put in a kid's movie. Sorry, go ahead.
Whimsical? Would that be
Yeah, whimsical. It is fairly dark, which is why I think the comparison to Ghibli is a good one, because Ghibli films, even the more child-oriented ones, could occasionally get pretty dark. So I'd say it's probably tonally closer to something like Spirited Away or Castle in the Sky, but in terms of the actual plot, it's very Arrietty in that it's like this secret world where objects
Which one
can
is
talk.
Arrietty? Was that the Borrowers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it.
What are you playing this on?
I'm playing this on PC, but I think it's available on other platforms. I'm not entirely
PS4,
sure.
Xbox One, PC. I'm just looking at the trailer now.
Okay, yeah. So I'm playing on PC with an Xbox controller. It works pretty well.
It's the way to do it.
Yeah, they've been. If this came out of Square Enix Collective, which is Square Enix's indie game initiative, where they essentially, bankroll production of indie games and take a small slice of the profits. So this is how we got Black the Fall last year, as well as Tokyo Dark. Tokyo Dark is really good, by the way, and y'all should play it. So they've been bankrolling, I think, really interesting indie properties, and the products that they've managed to put out have been really strong. So there's a plug for Square Enix Collective.
That sort of reminds me of like EA with
EA Indies or whatever it's called, Indies at EA, I forget.
right, exactly, and Ubisoft some years ago with Valiant Hearts.
Yeah,
Ubisoft wasn't indie. That's actually in-house at Ubisoft. That's
yeah. Ubisoft does is weird in that. So Ubisoft doesn't like employee churn. So what they do is sometimes they'll put, if they're kind of employees sort of waiting around for a project to get started. They'll put them on like a small project, something like Valiant Hearts or Grow Up or other smaller titles like that.
Child of Light, or what was that? Fucking.
Oh yeah, Child of Light.
One.
Atomega.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what they've been tending to do. My understanding, there's this big sort of expose on it a while ago. This hasn't been foolproof. Sometimes even with all these smaller projects, there hasn't been enough to go around, but they still haven't been firing people. So they essentially send people to like a blank room for weeks on end, and they just get paid to sit in a room and do nothing. It's supposed to be like professional development, but they're not going to shell out thousands of dollars for seminars because that's even more money down the drain. So they just like, yeah, sit here. 3 weeks later, we'll have work again for you, that kind of thing. But it has produced, these smaller titles as well, so I can't complain too much.
Hey, I just need to duck out for like 10 seconds.
All right.
Okay, just one little bit.
That's fine. Ben's dead now, and he'll be alive again once we get back into discussing the news, which we're going to do right now. So a lot of stuff has happened in the games industry recently, and we're just going to get right into it and talk about what everybody's been talking about lately, which is the big IGN Plagiarism Scandal. So for those of you who are unaware, IGN recently hired an editor for their Nintendo division. His name is Philip Muchin? I don't know how you say his name. Muselix, who knows? Anyway, after one of his reviews was published, a YouTuber noticed that it was extremely similar to his video review and, spread the word about it. And then people noticed, yes, this is plagiarism. And then they started digging into the rest of Musin's work, and they found out that almost all of it was plagiarized from other sources, usually pretty obscure sources like YouTubers, but also he'd gotten more brazen, and he'd even managed to plagiarize a Polygon review for one of his own reviews.
Yeah, that part surprised me.
Yeah, it gets worse. Apparently part of his resume, which is available online, was plagiarized from a LinkedIn template.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So he's got a picture of a Came with the Frame family sitting on his desk right now.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and he does not seem like he is remorseful or even understands why what he did is plagiarism.
Indeed, he did a YouTube follow-up video, if memory serves, outlining how it happened and effectively his lack of remorse for it. A sort of non-apology.
Was it like ripped off from a PewDiePie non-apology or something?
I would say.
I'm pretty sure it was the.
I would say it makes
It was really weird that he mentioned like seeing a dead body and everything, but.
Oh, Logan Paul, the gift that keeps on giving. I'm gonna say.
Wish you would stop giving.
So what I'm gonna say about this is it's probably even worse than a PewDiePie apology, because a PewDiePie apology comes with some measure of regret while also trying to kind of martyr himself at the same time, like almost like I'm sorry I got caught, or I'm sorry I said these exact words without understanding the fundamental problem. Here there's just no remorse whatsoever. Like he doesn't even understand anything that he did as being
PewDiePie
wrong.
apology at least understands that he needs to apologize for something, even if he's doing a shitty job at it.
Yeah, it's way worse than a PewDiePie apology, I would say. He's obviously out of a job. IGN fired him pretty much right away, and his former coworkers are all incensed. But I don't know. It makes you wonder if other reviewers are doing similar things. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm kind of surprised that number one, that this hasn't come up sooner, just given the sheer mass of content that's available online at the click of a button, and also that he thought he wouldn't be found out, and in some ways was right about it. Polygon should have been an easy way for him to get found out, and he wasn't. It was an obscure YouTube video that caused it.
Yeah, I mean, mostly what he was doing was just kind of like taking the script from a YouTube video and changing a few words here and there, which is actually pretty time-consuming.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to watch it and then transcribe. So I don't know how he thought this was saving himself time, unless he just really hates video games and doesn't want to play them for review.
It's a valid possible choice. I mean, how many of us have developed our own opinions on a particular piece of pop culture entertainment without really seeing it first? I mean,
yeah, so the one like video game adjacent example of this that I'd mention is Ready Player One, which I haven't read or seen, but
right.
I joined in on mocking it until somebody pointed out to me, hey, wait, you actually know nothing about this property. What's your problem? And then I realized, oh, wait, I really don't know anything about this property, and I'm being kind of an ass. Maybe it is really awful, and I just don't know, but I kind of... Yeah, I mean, I take your word for it. If it's awful, it's awful. But, like, it's not fair of me to say it's awful without having experienced it.
You should totally experience it. 'Cause,
just for, like, the shits and giggles?
Yeah, find that fucking book. It's bad. There is... Okay, the bit that cemented it in me is the main character is talking to a bunch of Japanese dudes about Ultraman.
And he calls it Urutoro Man? I've seen that.
He's one of those fucking weebs. You know he thought Berserk was about Gatsu.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've read those passages. And I'm just like, well, I've seen these passages out of context. I don't know how they work in context. But anyway, my point is, yeah, we've all developed opinions on things without having seen them or read them. An AV Club writer was
give people our opinions, so.
Pardon me.
We're also not getting paid to give people our opinions, though. So.
Yeah.
Wait, we're not getting paid for this?
Oh shit!
Disconnect straight away.
Glitch. Yeah, Glitch is gone. Oh man. Yeah, I mean, like, there was that AV Club writer many years ago who was fired for, essentially writing a review of a book that hadn't technically been released yet.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, people do this. They review things that they haven't experienced. It's just, this was some pretty hefty plagiarism.
Honestly, my biggest shock by this is that I could actually trust IGN less than I did already on their video game reviews, because, like, wow.
I mean, he's the kind of person who really shouldn't have been hired for that job in the first place, because his previous experience was not in writing. He has no writing credits really to his name. He was previously on YouTube. And you probably shouldn't hire people from YouTube to write for you, necessarily, unless they've proven that they also have a strong writing ability. And it really does call into question IGN's HR judgments.
Yeah, like, what is their kind of editorial? Like, there's something... Like, IGN should have caught this before it fucking went to... Well, not print, because they're a fucking website, but you know what I mean.
So, I mean, I have some sympathy on that dimension, because you really can't... Like, you're not going to submit everything that people turn into you to, like, turnitin.com to check for plagiarism. Yeah. You're just, like, what are copy editors doing? They're checking for spelling and grammar.
Right.
And does this make sense?
It's, at least from the college years, I can remember that, plagiarism is the one, it's sort of like the one unforgivable sin.
Like, you'd never expect people to do it at that level.
Right.
Which is why nobody's checking for it.
Like, and at least at an educational level, you'd get in some serious shit for plagiarizing. I once had to defend a technical document that I'd written against plagiarism. And it was very stressful. It's it's something that the professor took very seriously, a little bit too seriously, in my opinion. And then
Yeah, I've seen it happen before,
It's
professors either take it seriously or don't take it seriously. I've been a TA at the college level before, and I've graded assignments where students would copy their answers directly out of the solutions manual, which is stupid because I'm grading from the solutions manual. So I know what's in there. Like, I mean, it'd be really funny when they'd copy mistakes out of the solutions manual directly, because then I'd be like, you clearly didn't do the work, because this mistake is stupid and super obvious. And, like, college students do it all the time. And, like, having that experience, I can say they don't really see why it's wrong, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we do a good enough job of explaining why it's wrong and why academic honesty is important. And these people graduate from university, they go out into the real world, and they start writing for IGN, and they've never really been held to account, despite the fact that I'm sure this guy's been plagiarizing. I'm sure he plagiarized his way through college. I would not be surprised. And nobody ever held him to account. And now it's too late.
Without going down too much of a rabbit hole, it does strike me as symptomatic of a broader sort of quirky cultural situation with regard to postmodernism and adaptation of pre-existing works. I mean, you can get away with that in the artistic sphere where you're pulling in disparate influences and pastiche and all that. But once you get into the critical sphere, you can really run into some trouble, like this guy did, particularly when you don't bother to credit your sources.
Let me put it this way. If Muson's reviews were an art installation at MoMA, I think we'd be having a very different conversation right
Exactly.
now. So, like, I don't know, maybe he should pull a Shia LaBeouf and say it was all performance art. But it's not what this guy's doing. So, yeah, I mean, I can see there's an argument to be made that this is art, but, like, at the same time, if you're not, IGN does not claim to be a museum.
Yeah, it's very much contextual.
Yeah.
Yeah, IGN doesn't claim to be, a modern art piece or like some art zine or something. It'd be really cool if IGN tomorrow decided that it was going to be like a zine and publish like modern art on video games. I'd be down.
Yeah, what a twist.
Be the first time in a long time I read an IGN article.
I mean, I rip on IGN a lot, but I don't know. I don't find them like the worst or anything.
Yeah, I actually like their video content. They're no Eurogamer with their sort of digital foundry and all, but they can be good for a review here and there, as long as you take it with kind of it's one of a number of sources.
My thing for IGN is, I think their reviews are actually generally well written, and I think people care too much about their review scores, which, in fairness, tend to be extremely skewed towards the top end of the distribution.
Right.
Fair enough, but like, just ignore the number and read the review if it bothers you that much,
I have, even the fucking text of the reviews are really bad. Have you ever read their Legend of Korra review?
No, I have not.
The one for the game?
No, I've heard that game is not super well received.
Like, that person didn't understand how the game worked at all. He says a line in it that, because it's a game you can swap between the different styles of bending and everything, right? And he says a line in it that fire bending is the one you use when you just want to die because it's useless. And I played a lot of that game, and firebending is the most overpowered fucking bullshit in that entire game. Like, I don't understand how he came to that conclusion. Basically, in firebending, you teleport in front of an enemy with every attack button you press.
Huh.
It's really
what went
strong.
wrong?
And he's like, this is the one you use if it's impossible to fucking die when you use it.
I mean, maybe it just disorients him. I have no idea.
And after, like, that and the God Hand 3 out of 10 and fucking the Imagine Party Babies one, like,
I don't remember where I saw it or when I saw it, or if it was just a fever dream or whatever, because I'm prone to those anyway. But it was an interesting discussion on how competent a game reviewer has to be in order to accurately review a game. How good do you have to be at the video game that you're playing to present an accurate and honest review of it?
I'm going to give a super hot take here, and I'm just going to say baseline competence is all you should need to review. Like, can you play video games? That's all you really need, because a video game that's, too difficult for you is, like, that can be a negative. Like, a video game that is unfair difficulty or is too difficult for you. I think
yeah, that would be me in Bloodborne.
I think you need to be at least at the level of your average reader, because that's the point of a video game review, is to provide an opinion to the people reading it about whether they will enjoy it or not. So you need to be at, like, if you're way worse than your average reader, then you're not providing them with a useful experience, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah, there's an obligation by the reviewer
what I'd respond to that is, to the extent that there's like a distribution of ability in amongst gamers, and there's also a distribution of ability amongst reviewers, I don't mind that there's a couple of reviewers at the low tail of that distribution, and a couple of reviewers at the high tail, as long as most reviewers are concentrated sort of in the middle where most gamers are. Like, if there's a couple of outlier reviews, one by some guy who's not really great at video games, another by some lady who's like amazing at video games, it's not. I don't think that's the end of the world to me. I think that's actually good. It's healthy to have a distribution of reviewers that reflects the distribution of gamers.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be best for a reviewer to adequately convey their skill level, and for a reader to adequately investigate that information. So you can kind of pair up a reader with a reviewer that accurately reflects how they play games.
Yeah, like, let me put it this way. I respect a review of, say, a strategy game from a strategy game, I'd say, not like hardcore enthusiasts, but like somebody who's played a lot of strategy games, than from somebody who's like picking one up for the first time. Like, you want people who are sort of familiar with the material, at least to some extent, but I don't want them to be super fanatics about it, because then they'll care about like these nitty-gritty things that a more casual fan of the genre might not pick up on or not understand or the importance of. But then, I'll seek out something that matches my prior experience. If somebody's, talking all about how they were raised on StarCraft and Warcraft, that's not necessarily going to be a useful review for me, but it might be very useful for someone else.
I was raised on StarCraft and Warcraft, and I'm fucking rubbish at strategy.
Oh, yeah, I'm awful at them too. Like, I could not make it past the 3rd level of Tiberian Sun. That's how bad I am at it.
I was raised on StarCraft and Warcraft with cheats.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I was otherwise.
Yeah, I'm not great. I'm still not great at strategy games, and I kind of want to play them more and get into them, but I just have so many other video games to play that I never really take the time. I'll just say that Musin probably did not have the experience with Nintendo that he kind of claimed he had, I'm guessing. I guess he's not like this big Nintendo fan or whatever. You probably want somebody who knows Nintendo to be your Nintendo editor. So
there's no excuse for that. I would definitely not argue in favor of that.
So, like, the way it shakes out to me is I'm not like ready to like throw IGN under the bus for not catching the plagiarism, but I do definitely question the hiring decision in the first place. Like, this should never have happened in the first place. But I don't know. That's just me.
My sense is I threw IGN on the bus like years ago, and this is just adding on to the pile.
Yeah, that's fair.
More dirt on top of their corpse, basically.
I mean, yeah, we all have video game sites that we dislike. Like for example, I tell people that quarter to three sucks. I don't know if it's still operational, but I tell people that quarter to three sucks because Tom Chick is the Armand White of video game reviewers. So,
I fucking heard of that website.
It was only ever known because of Tom Chick. And Tom Chick was known because he would tank Metacritic scores with contrarian reviews. And I suspect that that they kind of came from a place of some honesty, like Armand White, but you wonder you just want to know how that person's brain works, because it seems to work in a bizarrely different way from everyone else's. I'm just curious what's going on in like Armand White's brain right now.
Yeah.
We'll never know. Speaking of other Nintendo-related things, Nintendo is also in the news for taking action against threatening legal action against a couple of ROM sites. And this led to popular ROM site Emu Paradise essentially, well, not shutting down, but shifting their focus from hosting ROMs, which they no longer do, to being like a general retro gaming kind of celebration. So this has caused no small amount of backlash and backlash to the backlash. Just to summarize sort of the main opposing arguments, the argument against downloading ROMs is that they're pirating old games, many of which are commercially available, and the argument for ROM sites is that they archive old video games, many of which are not commercially available anymore. So I don't know exactly where you guys fall on this spectrum.
Well, I'm Australian, so that should give you some hint.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you're an island of thieves. Oh, you forgot.
Like, I fucking just wouldn't play.
I just checked my wallet.
Chrono Trigger came out for the first time in Australia on the DS.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That's the first legally available version in Australia. So, like, that's kind of where I'm at with this. Fuck.
Yeah, it seems like Nintendo especially is very jealous of their IP compared to a lot of other companies. I mean, on the other hand, Nintendo's also quite a bit better than most publishers about making their old games available for purchase. I think the only company that's even comparable in that sphere is Microsoft with Xbox backwards compatibility.
Well, the thing is, Nintendo have announced they're not doing Virtual Console for the fucking Switch. So, like, what the shit are you doing?
Yeah, I'm as much a Nintendo booster as you'll find, despite not having been much of a fan of them in my youth. But their approach to archival content is, I don't know, inconsistent, a little odd. I will say, so I come from sort of an archival background professionally, and I do have some very serious concerns about the degree to which we can trust private originating creators to keep their work accessible in its original form over a very long period of time.
Oh, you can just flat out say, I don't trust them at all. They ain't going to do it unless they're going to get money for it, right?
Yeah.
There's no financial incentive for them.
And at the same time, of course, you don't want to deprive originating creators of profits, because then those originating creators dry up and you stop having new content.
If fucking Disney hadn't killed copyright, all those things would be, like, NES games and everything would be starting to enter public domain now anyway.
Right.
Because it's supposed to be 30 years, isn't it? Until fucking Disney just kept extending it because they didn't want to pay people. Or they didn't want to stop whatever the fuck,
Yeah, it's been extended many times. It's supposed to be, I believe, up to 50 years after the creator's death, I believe. I forget exactly. And it's been extended.
That was one of the, I don't know if that might be the modern one. Part of the trouble, especially once you come to the modern era as well, is that, just the nature of technology marching on, even 30 years is generous. That would have worked with analog film technology in the 20th century. But once you get to how rapidly formats iterate in the 21st century, even the general going wisdom with regard to, other types of long-term content that needs to be accessible is 10 years for a migration to occur. And it's very easy to lose complex things like source code in the course of 10 years. Even Okami.
That's the thing that
We
I'm
could have
really...
a 60 frames per second Okami if Capcom had not lost the source code.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
that
thing. I'm
was,
really curious. So many fucking of like the actual re-releases we're getting are down. Like the companies didn't have the original copies anymore. They had to download ROMs off the net. So if that's not going to be available, are we just not going to be able to get re-releases? I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I know that Okami is a good example. From what I've read about the background of the re-release, is a lot of that was coded from scratch. I mean, they had the assets, they had the music, obviously, the graphics, but a lot of the source code was missing. Because when a dev studio shuts down, there's not a lot of incentive to retain the information contained in that dev studio, which is tragic.
Yeah, you'd think the publisher would want to keep the rights even for future re-releases. I mean, now publishers know that re-releases can be profitable. I guess they'll hold on to source code for bigger games, like smaller titles that have not proved commercially or critically successful. Those are just going to end up languishing. Nobody's going to want to preserve them or care.
Like,
Yeah.
has anyone actually bought any of the fucking Metal Slug re-releases recently? That, like, you go into the folder it's installed in, and it's literally a ROM. Like,
I'm not
it's just
surprised.
a ROM downloaded of Emu Paradise with like an emulator. That's...
Yeah, although the arcade archives is pretty impressive. Between the original Donkey Kong and what was it, Sky Skipper this summer. That is compelling to me as far as making very old and lost content accessible for the first time commercially in a very long period.
What's that one? The arcade what?
Arcade Archives?
Yeah, on
I
the
don't know what that
Switch.
is. Oh, right.
Okay, yeah, I haven't played any of the Arcade Archives on the Switch because I'm not like a huge retro gamer. But I will admit that I've played some old games through emulation, like N64 games I have played through emulation.
Literally would not be like a video game if it wasn't for emulation. Like, I started getting into games like downloading fucking obscure Dragon Ball Z fighting game ROMs for the SNES, which led me to like a website that had all the Dragon Ball Z fighting games. Also, like, hey, you might want to check out this game that Akira Toriyama worked on, which was Chrono Trigger, and like that kind of is how I am into video games now. And like, there's so much shit on like just even the Super Nintendo and everything that like they're not games that were popular, but they're games that were amazing, and they're never going to get re-released. Like, ActRaiser is never going to have a re-release. That's never seeing the light of day again. Terranigma,
Yeah,
I don't even know
I've heard of Terranigma. I just don't know what it's
the
about.
best game on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take your word for it.
Oh no, Terranigma is a notable one. My own personal sort of pet game that I'm always disappointed will simply never get a re-release is Mystical Ninja starring Goemon on the Nintendo 64.
The fucking Zelda game before Zelda did it? That game was
Right,
awesome.
exactly. And its art direction's fantastic. It's got an extremely bizarre sense of humor, but frankly, the only way to encounter it at this point is emulation.
Yeah, I feel a lot of the same way about I'm kind of on a Japanese mythology kick here, but the Pocky and Rocky games are, very much in the same vein.
Like they'll never get re-released.
They haven't yet after 25 some odd years.
And see, that's a problem that like no company has an incentive to solve. At the same time, ROM sites sort of served this dual purpose of yes, archiving all these old ROMs, but also just like straight up providing shit that was easily commercially available as well. So, like, and those tended to be the most popular ROMs anyway. So, that's what kind of sucks about this. Like, if I would be 100% on like Emu Paradise's side. I'd tell Nintendo to go fuck off if these ROM sites were only hosting ROMs that were just not easily commercially available. They're also hosting like the most popular shit that was also available for Virtual Console. So, like, it becomes like they're doing a good service, but they're also sort of kind of funding website traffic through hosting things that obviously they shouldn't be hosting. So it's like, and the thing is, the traffic they get from hosting these things is what allows them to finance the ads that allow them to keep, financing their more noble goals. So I don't really know how to feel about this.
Oh, I know directly how I feel about it. Fuck Nintendo.
I wouldn't go that far myself, actually. I think
I
piracy,
definitely disagree with that. So
piracy is a real problem for copyright holders, specifically because it deprives the creators of art from receiving compensation for that art. But what I would like to see is a stronger legal distinction between emulation of out-of-print content and currently in-print content. And that does get hazy with the digital world. But,
yeah.
I mean, I'd be happy with the Virtual Console as a concept disappearing if, say, Square and Nintendo no longer were the gatekeepers for something like Chrono Trigger, and that interested parties could download it and make it accessible otherwise.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the more frustrating aspects of something like that, trying to define what is considered in print versus out of print is when something goes in print after decades. There are
Right.
There are
things like, say,
there are arcade machines, actually physical arcade, machines that you can buy on Amazon that contain, among other things, a presumably legally purchasable copy of Lunar Lander, a game that predates Asteroids.
right. But
so
is that like being sold by the original manufacturer, or is that like
no,
a used...
absolutely not. It's
like a used copy at that point.
Well, I mean, it's not
money's
a
not
used
going-
copy. I mean, Ed Log is not getting payment for that.
Yeah, I mean, that's my point. Like, if it's something like, say, you can buy a copy of, I don't know, No One Lives Forever on Amazon, but, it's not the original publisher that's receiving any cut of that. That's a used copy that you're getting, or it's in some warehouse
That's
somewhere.
the thing, with so many of those like old games and everything, the companies that own the rights don't even exist anymore. So
In
like,
some cases, yes, definitely, they
it's
do
like
not.
like, what are you supposed to, like, yeah, you want to give the people that made it their money, but those people don't exist anymore and all fucking work in other places or have quit gaming altogether. Like,
Yeah, like, my stance on this is, if it's not commercially available, I think piracy is perfectly noble. I think it's perfectly ethical to pirate something that you cannot buy. I don't, like, when it comes to things that you can buy, I don't know.
see, here's the thing where that gets even weirder is, so in America and I assume Canada, you can buy, like, any media, right? Like, you can import media from overseas, you can do all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Australia, if it hasn't gone through the OFLC, the Australian Ratings Board, it is illegal to own.
Oh wow.
Like, that, like, I cannot legally import game. Like, so if a game comes out in Japan and doesn't get an official Australian release, that is illegal for me to own. Like, that's how that works. So
Yeah. So, like, the North American perspective on this is going to be considerably different. Because if you live in Canada and the United States, the government has no role whatsoever, really, in regulating content. So
Whereas,
you just
like,
import where the fuck you want.
because that's the thing. When people say something is banned in Australia, it's nothing ever actually gets banned. It just doesn't get rated. They're just like, this has not fit into any of our rating schemes, so it has no rating. And that is an effective ban, which makes it illegal to, like, distribute and own kind of thing. Which means there is shit that is commercially available that I legally can't own. Like, I can't get fucking the sequel to that game that's like top down and you shoot people. And...
Hotline Miami?
Oh, yeah,
2?
I can't get Hotline Miami 2. I can't get the second Left 4 Dead.
I went straight to Ikari Warriors.
Wow.
We know where your brain's at.
I'm really old.
So, okay, let me ask how this works, though. If you were to, say, travel to the United States and buy a physical copy of Hotline Miami 2 and then take it back on the plane with you to Brisbane, would that be doable and legal?
Not technically legal, but I own a bunch of shit that isn't, so... But, like, technically it's not legal, but it's a law that isn't, like, really
Enforced.
strict or anything. But, like, I have copies, like, Mortal Kombat 9 never got an Australian rating, but I have a copy of that sitting out there. It's because basically you end up importing a bunch of stuff and really hoping that customs doesn't open it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like there is a bunch of shit that piracy is my only option. Like I said, Chrono Trigger, I was legally not allowed to own that until it fucking came out on the DS. That's insane.
Yeah, and it goes to show you that kind of approach to media just doesn't work very well. But it is what it is.
Yeah, and Australia is kind of an outlier in the developed world, but this is extremely problematic once you get to quite a number of countries in South America, the Middle East, Africa. I mean, the demand and enthusiasm is there, but these are not regions that major companies consider, a market for their products. So it becomes very
we're lucky
difficult
we
to
speak
import.
English. If we didn't, if we spoke fucking Brazilian or something, I don't know.
Portuguese?
Well, yeah. The games aren't coming out in Portuguese that often, are they?
They actually do localize in Portuguese. In fact, Brazil's a fairly large market for video games, but they tend to be a generation behind.
Brazil.
So PS3 is still popular there.
Crazy.
Yeah,
well,
Brazil has a lot of
the Sega Genesis and the Sega Master System, they actually, I think it's in Brazil, they still manufacture them.
Nice.
Brazil's like its own world for games market.
Okay, I apparently picked the worst fucking restaurant as an example that I could.
Ghana. Let's say Ghana.
They speak English there. They speak English there.
Shoot. Doggone it.
What's the name of the Groucho Marx fake country in
Duck-Soup. Yeah, what's that?
Yeah.
I would say like a good example of this actually is Korea, because for the longest time, especially Japanese companies didn't want to release their games there. So yeah, they didn't get a lot of the consoles. Or like China's another example. Until very recently,
China's a weird one though. That's not
you couldn't import consoles there. So yeah, there have been a lot of countries where this has been problematic for a lot of reasons. So anyway, that is ROMs. Moving on now. ROMs are a double-edged sword, but I can't complain because I downloaded a bunch and that's how I played Super Mario 64.
There is no negative to ROMs. Everyone steal your games. This is the officially endorsed position of the Avocado Games cast.
This is Ben's officially endorsed position.
Liable for anything that happens because of this.
Yeah, why don't I email this podcast once we're done to the Australian government and see if they enjoy your piracy. Yeah, we'll see how well that goes. So moving on, let's chat about Mighty Number 9, our favorite video game of all time. The one that doesn't make us feel like an anime fan on prom night.
Oh, Mighty Number 9.
I still think it's a fun game.
So apparently
I'm like
now
one person that actually enjoys that game.
I still remember for the second episode we recorded of this podcast, Lopside Down went out of his way to play it and report on it, and he was so demoralized by the experience that I don't think he appeared in any subsequent episodes.
You broke his soul.
Yeah. Oops. So, my number 9 is the new news that's come out about it is that
There's still fucking news about it. Is the news?
Yeah.
yeah,
Not a good sign.
apparently the handheld ports, the Vita and 3DS ports of the game, have been dead in the water, and the company that was originally contracted to make them apparently never did any work on them because they just didn't receive the build on time, and they're just like, okay, we're dropping this contract, you can give it to someone else. And now the game's publishers like Concept, Indie Create, Spike Chunsoft, Deep Silver, all the companies involved in making this won't comment on who's developing the handheld port, so nobody knows what's going on.
These handheld ports are for Vita and DS, right?
3DS, yeah.
The Vita is out of production, isn't it? Like, they
In
don't
North
make
America,
Vitas
it is.
anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an
Were
indie
they ever
darling
really
system for
making-
years, though. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
I
I have
have
a
my
lot of
Vita sitting right
affection
in front of
for
me. I
Vita.
fucking love the Vita. I backed
Yeah.
Mighty Number 9 for the Vita copy. Like, but even I think it would be insane to release it on the Vita at this point.
Well, they promised it. It's their problem. Yeah, so it's just bizarre that nobody knows what happened to the game, I guess. I don't know.
Everything about this is peak Mighty Number 9. Like, everything about the portable fiasco is somehow almost a parody of the problems that have dogged the game throughout production from day
yeah,
one.
it really mirrors everything else that was just everything that could go wrong with that game just did.
Yeah, I find it bizarre that they claim they claim it's still in production. If it's not in production, just like say it isn't. Like I'm sure it's never going to come out, but the longer you keep people hanging, the angrier they're going to be when you inevitably tell them that you fucked up. So,
Yeah,
Like,
it's kind
I
of
would think-
odd because other Kickstarter projects have moved on. What's the Curse of the Moon, Bloodstained?
Bloodstained
they were
Ritual
like,
of the
yeah,
Night.
fuck it, we're not doing a Wii U version, guys. Like, come on.
Right, and Ukulele.
And like, honestly, I don't think anyone really cared because like there were like the 4 people that owned a Wii U that were like, no, but like they all had.
Whatever, they all bought Switches, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
who cares?
We're all busy buying the same games over again for the Switch too.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah,
right.
that's the thing. I own a Vita. I backed the Mighty Number 9 Kickstarter with the Vita reward tier. Like, I don't give a shit if, like, I think it would be insane. Like, just fucking say, look, okay, we're canceling the Vita 3DS version, we're gonna put it on Switch instead, because every single fucking person owns a Switch. Like, and no one would be upset by that.
Yeah,
Right,
like
though
5
I
people
will
who
say
rage
I
about
would
it.
like to see them offer, a refund option for people who backed it for consoles who did not buy subsequent consoles. I think Ukulele handled that with you could migrate to a new one or get a refund.
Well,
Yeah, I
with
think that's
the
perfectly
Vita
fine.
version, it was cross-buy, so you got that for the PS4. if
Oh,
you
nice.
beat it. So like I have it on the PS4. That's why I've actually played it. But
I'm sorry.
so I like it. It's a good game. It's not the best Mega Man game ever, but it's like mid-tier Mega Man. I think it's better than like a lot of the later Mega Man games.
Sure.
That's a discussion for another time. But yeah,
Yeah.
like, don't fucking release a Vita game in 2018, Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the problem isn't so much where they're releasing it. The problem is just not being communicative about where they're releasing it or what they're doing or really anything or, being competent, period.
Yeah.
So,
It bums me out to hear this about Spike Chunsoft, but even more so Inti Creates, who I feel is just the master of the modern 2D platformer. It's just a shame to see them being very cagey about this subject.
yeah, I feel like it's one of those things that's become so toxic that they can't really talk about it anymore. Like, and when there's so many companies involved, if you say something, then you risk pissing off one of your commercial partners. So
Yeah, good
that's
point.
probably why everybody's kind of keeping mum.
I want to see a fucking documentary on what went wrong with Mighty Number 9.
Yes,
Clearly,
I would watch that.
Because the thing is, Indie Creators know what they're doing. They make good fucking games. Concept, like, I don't think it's fair to blame them either, because they didn't develop the game. They're a concept studio. They did, like, a bunch of, like, design work and all that kind of stuff, but they weren't responsible for the actual production of the game, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and they did Recore, which is okay.
Yeah, so, like,
Right.
what the fuck happened?
What about Deep Silver? Maybe we can throw them under the bus.
Deep Silver didn't get involved until after it was out, didn't they?
Deep Silver, like, once it was basically, they became the Western publishing partners.
Oh,
and they're the
okay.
people who put out the Anime Fan on Prom Night trailer.
Yeah, they're definitely...
So that's what you can blame them for. Yeah, and Spike Chunsoft is the Japanese publisher for the game. I don't know what they did on this game, or if they're responsible for anything. They might have tried to turn it into a high school murder mystery. Who knows? But, like, other than that, I don't know what they're responsible for. So, yeah, let's just blame Inafune. That's the fashionable thing to do. All right, so moving on, if there's anything else you guys want to discuss.
Wait, what the fuck? Keiji Inafune wasn't the director of the game.
What?
Wait, what?
I'm sorry, what?
He is the writer of the game. The director is Koji Imiyade and Kenichi Ikegami.
Well, there's
Yeah,
your
blame
problem.
those assholes.
Yeah, this is the first I'm finding out, like, that is not what I... They don't even have, like, their names aren't links on the Wikipedia page.
Wow. Man,
Yeah,
you'd think
so
that
it's a
with
bunch of,
Keiji
like,
Inafune,
nobodies.
He, like, cast such a large shadow over this, you'd think he'd be the director.
Yeah,
I thought so. I mean, that was part of the big selling. I mean, before the game even hit, that was one of the big selling aspects of it. Is a Mega Man creator creates, or not Mega Man.
Right. Or pseudo Mega Man.
I'm trying to find out who the fuck these two guys are.
What did they work on previously?
Our giant guy.
Just a couple Fall Guys.
Wait, are we sure that that's accurate? Is that cited on Wikipedia?
Do not question Wikipedia.
Why would Wikipedia lie to me? How do I know if it's cited? Does it have the little, like, thing next to it?
Yeah, directors Koji Imaeda, Kenichi Ikegami. Yeah, I can't see what the source is for that. We'll look it up. We'll link dump this shit.
Yeah.
We'll see what happened there, because this is bizarre. But yeah, sometimes Wikipedia, especially in the box to the right where they have all this info, sometimes people just put stuff in there that's wrong.
Right.
Really obscure example that only a bunch of music nerds will care about. Let me actually look this up right now just to make sure I'm not making this up.
Kenichi Ikegami has three video game credits that I can find: Mighty Number 9, Naruto Powerful Shippuden, and Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures.
That is a fascinating resume.
Yeah, not a great resume. We don't have to talk about my example because it was stupid. Anyway.
No, you brought it up. You have to finish it, Merve.
Okay, so I can't prove this anymore. I'd have to dig into the Internet Archive. But there's a recent album that was released by this band called Foxing. It's a great album. It's called Nearer My God. Anyway, on the Wikipedia article for it, it said that the producer was the producer of their last album, but there was a lot of press that they did before the album was released, saying that was produced by Chris Walla, formerly of Death Cab for Cutie. So you could just look up, like, literally dozens of articles on this and get the right name of the producer, but they had the wrong producer listed on Wikipedia for ages. And now it's fixed. Anyway, that's not important, but it's a great album. You should all go listen to it. Anyway, back to video games. Yeah, this podcast has been about a lot of things that aren't video games, like killing animals and
Oh no.
art rock.
Poor Amaterasu.
I didn't say we were killing her. Jeez.
Oh yeah, I was meaning to ask before. What's the deal with her being a wolf in that? Because I'm pretty sure she's not a wolf in, like, mythology.
Because wolves are cool.
It's
fair
something
enough.
with the intro. There was a wolf 100 years before. I'm actually playing that right now as well, but man, a lot of that intro blends together.
Yeah,
It's
she.
I know she's a
she,
character in Spite, and I was really disappointed she wasn't a wolf. She's just like a lady.
Yeah,
I will say that the word wolf does not appear in the Wikipedia article on Amaterasu.
Yeah, I think that is so. I read some of the background of some of the development background for Okami, and I don't know that it talks about where the idea specifically of Amaterasu being a wolf comes in, but she was expected or was originally planned to be something of a shapeshifter, like if she entered into water, she became a dolphin.
Oh, nice! That
Yeah.
would have been amazing.
I mean,
That's a
Twilight
cool
Princess
video
was
game
coming out
mechanic,
real
and they should have
soon.
done that.
That's that's probably not a small. I don't know which one entered into development first, but one probably influenced the other.
I'm gonna say that there need to be just more dolphin games in general, because Echo can't be the standard bearer forever.
Oh dear God! Don't
So
remember.
Echo's not
that.
very
Oh.
good.
It's also not very good.
Good riddance.
Yeah, so that's why they need to make a good fucking dolphin game.
The best dolphin game is Wave Race 64 when you unlock the dolphin instead of the fucking jet ski.
Man, when the
I
best game
did play-
representing an animal is like a secret feature, it probably requires more representation.
Yo, there's
It's like,
this
how
old-
the best Darth Maul game is Tony Hawk's.
Yo, there's sold like fucking flash game on the internet called I think Dolphin Cup, I want to say, and it was like this. It was essentially like 2D Tony Hawk, but with a dolphin. I don't
Nice.
know how to explain it.
I want to say that the best video game involving aquatic creatures is Seaman on the Dreamcast.
Oof. Gosh, we hardly knew ye. Man, that's a callback.
Oh yeah,
That's a little before my time. I
that
think.
game. Oh, it is.
Have you not seen Seaman, Merve?
I'm afraid to say yes or no because
It's creepy
Seaman sounds like
fish
something
with a
else.
I
man
mean-
face that you talk to, and I think he was voiced by Leonard Nimoy in the English release.
The narrator is Leonard Nimoy. I don't know who
Oh,
actually
yeah.
voices him, but yeah, Leonard Nimoy is very much in the game. If you want to talk about an argument in favor of playing games on their original hardware, Seaman is one of them.
Yes.
Because it is batshit crazy, and the only way
Yeah,
I'm aware
like
that you can even
feature.
play it is yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
so
Neither
apparently
of us
Seaman was
like
played
it.
by a guy named Jeff Kramer,
Okay.
whose other credits include it's the guy who played Francis York Morgan in Deadly Premonition.
Ooh. Now there's a resume. Seaman, Deadly Premonition.
Yeah. Oh my god, that's fucking amazing. Okay, he's in Jet Set Radio, he was in Armored Core, he was in Shadow the Hedgehog. He wasn't playing Shadow, he played
Wow.
I was gonna say, was he Shadow?
no, he played E123 Omega.
Oh, yeah, that
I don't
guy.
know what that
Oh,
is.
Robot.
Unforgivable.
Arguably the most memorable character.
Hey, I remember him. He was cool, and he had a bird inside of him, and his ending was sad.
Oh.
I didn't know that Shadow could inspire sadness.
Oh, not Shadow. Fuck Shadow.
Never Shadow.
What a fucking asshole. So I think we got time to chat about one more news story before we call this to a close.
Gonna be how
So,
shit Smash Ultimate looks.
pardon me?
It's gonna be how shit Smash Ultimate looks.
I think it looks fine. It's not going to be about that. So we can either talk about Fortnite or Hi-Res Studios.
Guys, I don't have a dog in either of these fights. I have never played Fortnite.
I played Fortnite once, and I think Paladins is kind of fun.
I guess we're talking
My
about
nieces and
Fortnite
nephews
streamer.
are gonna really complain about it if they hear this, but I have neither seen nor played Fortnite. I'm sorry to say.
Neither have I. I hope your nephews and nieces don't hear about this because we swear a lot on this podcast.
Oh,
Gosh
yeah,
darn it.
Well, kids grow up,
Kids grow up so fast these
Quickly, I
days.
guess.
Watching Fortnite streamer Tyler Ninja Blevins,
Yes.
who has recently caused controversy by making public his decision not to stream with female streamers.
Because, ew, girls.
Yeah.
It's a little more complicated than that, but it has the same result.
disagree. I mean, come on.
You gotta watch out for those
I do not
YouTubies.
agree with his decision.
I'm sure you could justify it as much as you want, but if your audience is the kind of people who would object to the presence of someone with
That's okay. So let's actually break down what this is about.
Okay.
So he made these comments in an interview to Polygon. It's not clear what prompted it because it wasn't written in an interview format. It was just like, we talked to Ninja and he said this. So it's not clear in what context this even came up. But he claims that he doesn't stream with women because he's afraid that anytime he's interacted with women in streams before, his fan base has started spreading rumors about it, and he doesn't want it to affect his relationship with his wife.
Is he Mike Pence?
I guess.
I was thinking the same thing.
I guess. Yeah,
Pence
so
is
there's
alter
no...
ego.
So, obviously, this is wrong. And there exists a solution to this, which is get better moderators for your Twitch chat and, like, kick out people who don't follow the rules, I guess, would be the way to go about this.
Cultivate a better fan base.
It's just, to a certain extent, you're not really in control of your fan base. I understand you can't control what happens on, like, Reddit or Twitter. If people want to spread shit there, you can't do much about it. But at the same time, like...
But you can't let that dictate who you interact with either.
That's not how the world works. I think he's really
abdicating an important kind of influential role here, and really giving a lot... It reminds me of a lot of recent scenarios, particularly in games where, for lack of a better term, your sort of alt-right crowd has kind of guided the conversation, and that's overstating the case here.
Yeah, but I don't really think that's what's going on here. It's more like the old, how do I put it this way? It's more like he's a victim of certain attitudes, let's say deeply heteronormative attitudes that certain people have, but at the same time, he's rich and has the tools to deal with them.
Exactly.
So, I do obviously, let me put it this way. Yes, we have to have a conversation about how this came to be, because this decision didn't happen in a vacuum, but he had the ability to make another decision. And he chose not to. And he chose to publicize it. Again, it's very unclear in which context this came up, which is why I'm faulting the Polygon article a little bit, because they didn't explain why they asked him this.
Polygon have, kind of this thing where I don't trust them when this shit happens. Because, do you remember the, whole thing where it was too hard to animate women in Assassin's Creed?
Oh, yeah.
Did that come out of... Was that originally reported in Polygon or elsewhere?
That was a Polygon interview where they ran the article about them saying this and everything. Then if you actually go watch the interview, which is like half an hour long, so no one actually watched it, it's completely taken out of context and not at all what they were saying.
Oh.
So, if you go watch the actual interview, what he's saying is, we've added in a system that has, basically, all the different, bits of outfits and everything you can wear in Assassin's Creed Unity, and to add in a female player for the multiplayer thing, which you'd never actually get to play, see yourself playing as, we'd have to redo all the pieces of clothing, all the hundreds and hundreds of pieces of clothing and everything we've done to fit on a different body type, which is, an unreasonable demand, really. And that was what he said, and they've turned it into, it's too hard to animate women, we're not doing it, which is dumb for a studio that made a fucking Assassin's Creed game with a woman as the lead. So,
I would say in that circumstance, there's the assumption that Ubisoft is making in their argument that the male is the default character, and creating, a secondary one would require too much effort.
So
there's some
my response to that is the blame shouldn't go to the developers whom they're interviewing. They started mocking that guy, and not Ubisoft for not funding them or giving them time or resources to do that. or the direction to do that, like why does the blame fall on the grunt and not the corporation? Like that's
Anyway, I've just
that's
seen
what
them
sort of
take
bothered me.
like stuff out of context before and blow it up into a huge thing. So like, I'm a little bit hesitant when this comes out and they don't really have it clear.
That's why I'm like, let me put it this way: if this were a clear response to a question in an interview, or if he brought this up unprompted and it was clear from the context that was the case, then I would be throwing this guy under the bus like nobody's business. But because it's not clear in which context it came up, it's just, oh, we spoke to him and these are comments he made. I have no idea why this came up or if he was baited into saying this. I mean, he kind of doubled down later on Twitter, not in like an extremely rude way, but in like I stand by my comments kind of way. So I think it's sort of fair to say it wasn't taken out of context, but again, I don't know why this was brought up in the first place. So
Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I still think he's wrong, and I still think his fan base is toxic, and he's partly to blame for his fan base being toxic, but there's some of it you can't control. And, you know, I've been on the receiving end of that kind of gossip before, and it really sucks.
Ugh.
But it's not like you can't control what people say, unfortunately, and it's just something you have to deal with, and it sucks and it's unfair. But if it leads you to treating people of one gender differently from people of another gender, then, especially if you're making as much money as you are off Twitch as you are, you suck it up and deal with it, you know?
Well, the thing that I'm also like kind of hesitant to like throw him under the bus for is like, so he's doing this because he doesn't like the way it's affecting his relationship with his wife, right? So
Yeah.
like, this is probably not so much just like a thing he has decided on his own, probably like a discussion he's had at length with his wife about ways to deal
he
with
claims it was a decision he made by himself.
Oh, okay, yeah, fuck him.
To protect his wife. But like, I don't know to what extent he has or hasn't had conversations with his wife about this.
Yeah, I mean,
But
the
not
idea
privy.
of his being around, I don't know, his producing content with a woman being detrimental to his relationship with his wife, I don't know. There's a lot of sort of strange red flags there. But at the
yeah.
same
I've seen
time,
people
I don't
with
know enough about
fucked up-
this.
Like, I've seen people go to like weird, fucked up places just watching streamers and like then like basically creating their own narratives of like what their personal life is like and going on. Like,
Oh, goodness.
people get fucking weird about this shit.
Like,
So
I'm
It's-
probably too
It's a
old.
serious problem. Like, this shit like, people like Keemstar exist on YouTube and just like amplify this shit.
Yeah, I have
like,
no
it just-
clue. I got no frame of reference. I have no idea what you're talking about
Yeah,
at this point.
it's a culture that I'm very far removed from as well. And the only reason I have any sort of adjacency to it is that I have a Tumblr account.
Oh, okay.
And occasionally something will come through it, like
I'm not
fifth
entirely
hand
sure what
about
Tumblr
something
is,
like this.
actually. I mean, if we're going to be honest here.
It lacks an
Bullseye.
E. That's the main thing to remember.
Tumblr is Twitter, but with more characters and more fandom and more porn.
Okay. More porn, you say? Really?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, that perked
Now
me
we
up.
know. Yeah, now we know where to go.
Yeah, I think Twitch is really slick. It does come with some of those challenges that I guess YouTube comes with as well of problematic associations of viewers and fan bases with the people that they're following.
Yeah, there's not. I get, like, it's, this kind of culture starts at his Twitch chat, and he could do better moderating it probably. And, you know, it's an expense. You need to hire people to do it, but then you need to make that expense.
Yeah.
And yes, you can't control what happens on Tumblr. You can't control what happens on Reddit. That's fine. But if you nip it in the bud, then it doesn't travel there
Yeah.
in the first place. And so, yeah, I don't think this guy is like an incorrigible misogynist whom we have to throw under the bus and tar and feather. But I also think that he has made a serious error in judgment, and given his platform, he should reverse his decision.
Yeah.
But that's just, again, none of us are women, so maybe we shouldn't be talking about this or making the judgment call.
Yeah, I mean, it would broaden one's horizons, I would think, just to get a different perspective on something like that, because it, without knowing the details, and I mean, obviously I do not But to just have a blanket statement that I will not include.
Yeah.
It's
bizarre.
reductionist.
It's bizarre because he's done things like promote female streamers before. He just won't stream with them, which is, again, strange. So who knows where one draws these lines?
Yeah.
But I think he should draw them differently.
I think it's a problem with one's priorities. That's just like how you view, a woman as a streamer. And I mean, are you more interested in this person, in her ability to provide, I guess, insightful commentary in a stream, or are you more concerned about the fact that she is a woman? I would hope that it would put more emphasis on the former than the latter, I guess, would be.
I would hope so too, but yeah, apparently, like I said, when you have a deeply heteronormative fan base,
and I mean, going back
like,
to that if it was me, that would bother the living shit out of me. That would be. I don't know what the hell a Twitch fan base even looks like. I'm sure it's wonderful.
Yeah, like if you just ship any people of opposite gender, like basically if two things are vaguely oppositely gendered, they will be shipped. That's just how Twitch and Tumblr work, and that's bad. But you also know that's how it works, and you know that's what it is going in. So, like, you have to account for it. And
that hurts my brain to think about.
Yeah. It should. It really should.
You glitched me.
I did glitch you.
I done got glitched.
And now that you've gotten glitched, I think we're going to call this podcast to a close. So for those of you who would like to follow us more, I don't know why you would. This podcast is kind of a train wreck. But just in case you would. Not this episode, just in general. You're delightful, Mr. Glitch.
Those other jerks.
Every other episode we did up until now was garbage. But now that we've got Mr. Glitch, we've turned things around.
I am a sparkling conversationalist.
But if you'd like to keep up to date with this podcast, you can follow us on our website at avocadogamescast.wordpress.com, where we post every episode. We post a link dump that will fact check some of the nonsense we said. Apparently, we have a lot of fact checking to do because we need to know how cats fall.
No, we don't. And please do not experiment.
I don't have a cat. I can't experiment.
Do not go out and get a cat and then check him off your roof and analyze his aerodynamics. Please, for the love of God.
That is way more money than I'm willing to spend on this podcast. Could just pick up a stray, though. Might have rabies. Don't get me thinking down this road. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play Music. Just search for Avocado Gamescast. And the community that spawned this, of course, is available at theavocado.org with a hyphen between the and avocado. Otherwise, I don't know where the website takes you without the hyphen. You can type in the
I'm pretty sure
URL
I've gone there before, and it's a website about like avocado farmers.
That sounds delicious.
Okay, let's see what it is.
Oh.
Is it loading? It's taking too long to load. Fuck this shit. All right. Since it ain't gonna load, thank you guys for being on the podcast. If this ever loads, we'll put it in the link dump what it is. And that was not really English. We'll add to the link dump what this website is about. That is English. Thank you guys for being on the podcast. This was a lot of fun. And any other closing thoughts? Oh, yours is loading. What is it? What is it? Site can't be reached. Fuck you, website.
What a tease, you internet. You internet tease.
Remember the dash.
But if
We
you
didn't
just go
need
to
the fucking-
avocado.org, it redirects to californianavocados.com.
Okay, so apparently we didn't need the fucking hyphen in our URL. Way to go, guys. No, I'm kidding. The people who made the site are awesome, and you should give them an internet hug because they're cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. And we'll see you listeners next time.
Yay!
Ciao.
See ya.